prenuptial agreement is a contract between two people planning to get married that determines how their property will be distributed when the marriage ends. Under the law in Washington, D.C., they can also apply to domestic partnerships. A prenuptial agreement in Washington, D.C. courts is called a premarital agreement, but you probably know them as a prenup. And although D.C. prenuptial agreements can apply to any reason for the end of a marriage, you are probably most familiar with them in the context of divorce. We're eForms, the largest online database of fillable legal forms. In this video, we'll address Washington, D.C. prenuptial agreements, including why you might want a prenup, what Washington, D.C. law allows prenups to contain, what steps you should take before signing a prenup. And if you're looking for a prenup agreement form made in accordance with Washington, D.C. laws, watch until the end of this video for a link that can take you to one. First, why should someone get a prenuptial agreement? One reason prenuptial agreements are typically associated with divorce is that the other common reason for the end of a marriage, death, already has a set of legal documents regarding asset distribution, like wills and trusts. These are a way to reduce uncertainty, and prenuptial agreements do the same thing. Under D.C. law, the judge hearing a divorce case for a couple without a prenuptial agreement will decide on an equitable distribution of the couple's marital property, which includes everything acquired by the couple during the marriage, as well as certain kinds of real estate. This gives the judge a great deal of power, but a premarital agreement keeps the power in your hands. That being said, prenuptial agreements are not for every relationship. You should only pursue one after a serious discussion with your significant other, and whether one is right for you will depend on your financial situation, so it may also be wise to speak with a financial professional. Finally, keep in mind that although the prenup becomes effective once a couple gets married, not when the document is signed, it's nonetheless recommended to have a period of time between the signing of the documents and the wedding. So keep this in mind if you are considering a prenup. Next, what can and cannot be included in a Washington, D.C. prenup. The law around prenups in Washington, D.C. resembles the law around contracts. Couples have discretion to cover a wide variety of assets, including the marital property that will be acquired during a marriage. Prenups can include personal property, land, and financial assets, including bank accounts and ownership of a company. They can also incorporate other documents like a will, and can even require that another state's laws be used to interpret the prenup in the event of a disagreement. One thing to pay special attention to in Washington, D.C. prenups is the issue of spousal support, often called alimony. The district allows couples to use a prenuptial agreement to set a level of spousal support, or even to guarantee that it won't be provided. But these provisions should be pursued cautiously. Even if both spouses sign the prenup indicating his or her agreement, agreements that are grossly unfair to one spouse may later be set aside by a court. This is especially true if enforcing the provision would leave the spouse without any resources. While spousal support may be limited or eliminated in certain cases, the obligation to support children is clearer. Prenuptial agreements cannot limit or eliminate this duty. So you think you're interested in a prenup. What do you need to do before signing the papers? Once you and your partner have agreed to pursue a prenup, you need to have a thorough conversation about what it should contain. This should touch on a few things. First, it's important to make sure that both parties are joining the agreement voluntarily. Even if each partner signs the prenup, if it's challenged later, a judge could look for evidence that one party was pressured into signing against his or her will. Along with not threatening a spouse over the consequences of failing to sign, each spouse should have the opportunity to consult with a separate attorney. Second, the spouses should exchange financial information. Although this is a requirement for a prenup to be valid, they differ in how it's interpreted. For Washington, D.C. prenups, it's better to err on the side of caution and provide as much detail as possible. In the past, courts have found that providing an annual income tax return as well as an itemized list of assets is sufficient. Finally, you may be familiar with the concept called consideration, which essentially means that there must be something of value exchanged for a contract to be valid. Although prenups are contracts, there's no need to exchange anything other than the marriage vows. To find a template for an official Washington, D.C. prenup, click the link below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to find more eForms videos on legal information you can use in your everyday life.